Hello everyone, thanks so much for listening. I thought I'd do a quick introduction to debt and equity. Very high level, but just to understand and explain you the concept, because I realize many professionals, especially students, still struggle to understand, okay, what are we talking about? Everything we do going forward is based on a clear understanding what debt and equity is. So first, if we look from a company perspective, we have a company A needs money. They have three different options to raise or generate money. First is from their operations, internal funds. This is when they sell products, when they sell services, they use their internal funds for acquisitions, for investments, and so on. The second option is to raise debt. And raising debt could be they raise a bond or they go to the bank and ask for a loan. And the third one is to raise equity. So let's say they don't have sufficient funds internally, or they decide we need additional investment, so we want to raise debt and we want to raise equity. From a company perspective, what they offer, they want money. So they want money from an investor. Let's call it investor A. And they want let's say $100. Doesn't really matter what number we use. They can raise debt to get $100, or they can raise equity to get $100 or 100 million, whatever the number is. In order to get money, they need to give something. Otherwise, how would they get $100? What do they give up? They're not giving you a machine. They're not just giving you some employees. They need to give you something else. What do they give you? They actually give you, as an investor, a piece of paper. It's all electronically these days, but in general, it is a piece of paper, nothing else. Debt, you call it bond, or you call it note, and here you call it share. That's all you get as an investor. From a company perspective, in order to get 100, you don't get it for free. So you can't say, dear investor A, please give me $100 now. I give you $100 back in 5 years. Wouldn't work, because time value of money, I will do another video on this, doesn't work. So there needs to be something in addition. Otherwise, no investor would lend $100 to the company and get the same amount back in 5 years. So for a debt instrument, what will happen after 5 years? The investor get exactly the initial amount back. Let's say $100. Present value, that's face value. Plus coupon payments. Let's say this bond has a coupon of 5%. Means here $5, for example. So this investor would give the money $100. Over 5 years would get $5 every year, every 6 months, depending on the structure of the bond. And at the end of the 5 years at maturity would get the money back. And the return the investor would make would be the return 100 plus your coupon payments over the money that you lent earlier. That is your return. Return on investment from an investor perspective. From a company perspective, we don't call it return, because return is from an investor perspective. From a company perspective, it's your cost of debt. And it's exactly the same. From a debt perspective, from an investor perspective, it's your return on your debt instrument. From a company perspective, it's your cost of debt. Same for equity. It's again, from an investor perspective, it's your ROI or return on equity. And here it's your cost of equity. Yeah. For shares, it's a bit different because you don't get regular coupon payments. You buy a share, again, a piece of paper, all electronically. You buy a share for $100 and you are entitled to dividends, which is a bit similar to coupon payments, and you are entitled to capital gains. Yeah, so if the share price increases to 120, you could sell your share either back to the company if they plan to buy it back, or to sell it back to investor B via the stock exchange and so on, to get capital gain. And again, your return would be your dividends plus your capital gain over the initial money that you lent. Yeah, again, your return on investment or your return on equity would be the cost of equity from a company perspective. Yeah, and later on when we do free cash flow calculations, we call it weighted average cost of capital, because it is a mix, cost of debt, cost of equity, depending on what the company has raised and how. And again, here we call it return on investment in general. Yeah, so you have, whatever we discuss, you always have two sides: cost of capital, return on capital from an investor perspective. Very important here, if we compare debt and equity, if company A goes bankrupt, debt holders get money first, and whatever is left over, equity/shareholders will get later. Which means from an investor perspective, equity is more risky, because if the company is bankrupt and there's only 80 million left, but the company needs to pay 100, then basically here they get 80, then the company has no money and the shareholders are left with nothing. So that means the return on equity or the return on investment that an investor in equity would demand would be higher than for debt. Yeah, means from a company perspective, again, going back to here, to the left-hand side, cost of equity is usually more expensive than cost of debt. Sounds a bit counterintuitive because we talk about interest, we talk about interest expenses, we talk about mortgages, we talk about bank loans, and that always sounds quite expensive. However, because of the ranking, to raise equity from a company perspective is usually more expensive than raising debt. Yeah, I go into more detail about weighted average cost of capital and to explain those instruments further, but in the end, main takeaway, debt and equity, kind of piece of paper, all electronically. For debt, you are entitled to certain cash flows, whereas with equity, you also get certain cash flows, dividend payments, capital gains, and you have some additional rights like voting rights and so on. But basically, that's all what you get. Thank you so much.